morning, everyone. Welcome to the metal markets. I'm just going to move myself to the left. So crude oil is going crazy. So we are going to be quite careful with what we do with it. But before we go into energies markets, let's have a look at what the metals have done overnight. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome. I've been trading for 20 years at this point, and I have been with Topstep in some shape or form for over 10 years now. I was one of Topstep's, the first female trader. They got funded, and that's how I got to meet the entire team. Since then, I've obviously been involved with Topstep TV. Now, normally I trade energies and metals, and because crude oil is going absolutely insane, I think my attention is probably gonna remain on copper. So let's have a look at copper. Now, these streams are gonna be starting an hour earlier if you are located in the UK or EU, and this is because of the difference of the daylight savings clocks. UK changes their clocks towards the end of March. US already does it after the first week in March. And that means that the London Metal Exchange will not be opening for another hour and 10 minutes. But at the same time, to make everything super weird, the COMEX exchange for us over in UK and Europe, COMEX and the New York Stock Exchange and NYMEX are starting an hour earlier and also closing an hour earlier as well. All right, let's have a look at gold first. Gold is currently sitting below Friday's TPO value. They tried to test it a couple of times. So far, that has not been successful. And for now, that's kind of putting a bit of a bearish twist on the metals. Nothing much has changed in the options on gold. We still have that 5,000 level to the downside, which remains a potential magnet. What happens there? It's everyone's guess. But we are in a negative gamma environment on gold currently, so caution with any levels. Negative gamma usually means that you're going to have a lot of slip-throughs, and it does open up the possibility for some crazy movement later in the day, because that's what negative gamma means. It means that the dealer hedging is going to amplify any moves that occur. So expect a lot of slipping and sliding from whatever level you might be looking at. Okay, let's have a look at what the auction is doing on gold. It, for now, failed the auction, and the initial bounce size is still pretty massive at 238 ticks. We still have heavily expanded ranges, so we might have some absolute craziness as the COMEX session begins, and the closer we get to COMEX session start, the crazier it's going to get. Now, we just had the... just as I started this stream, we had the AM gold fix, which happens at 10:30 AM London time. Then we have another one at 3 PM. This is all GMT, so feel free to convert those into your specific time zones. And whilst the fix is something to be aware of, you don't trade it. The only thing that happens is that it aids in some of the more volatile side of things, but it is not really something that decides the direction, even though we can see a sharp movement away from the fixing price, time of day. For now, it doesn't seem to be doing all that much, but you know, with this rejection of value low for now, which can change the closer we get to COMEX, it's looking a little bit bearish. Just a little bit though, nothing too much. All right, copper. Let's expand copper. Copper in a similar situation. Let's have a look at the large time frames, because that's something that could provide some additional analysis. Right, so we went all the way down to the weekly range low and bounced away from it. We're kind of still in the bottom of that range, so that would kind of clash with what I'm seeing at the moment on copper. So intraday we're looking like we want to fail the auction, but from the large time frame we're actually still rejecting the bottom of that range. With the headline risk kicking off, metals generally do tend to go a little bit nuts. Which side depends on what sort of focus we will have on the day. At the moment, because we have this strong focus on everything kicking off even more in the Middle East, risk off remains a problem. That means gold and crude oil up, equities down. But we are intraday traders, so for sure there might be some mean reversions to be had, given the fact that the overnight moves, especially in crude oil, have gone absolutely insane. So that means micros. So I will not be touching the crude oil mini today. Another thing to note is that crude oil mini has a lot of gaps on the dome. So if you look at level 2 data, you will see that there are not a lot of contracts there at all, and that is always dangerous. It means a lot of slippage. It means that if you enter a trade, you may not get the price that you want, but it's just going to fill you somewhere random. Of course, this is more of a problem for the live accounts, but at the same time, they do try to simulate this behavior on the sim as well, and you can also get horrible amounts of slippage. It also means that some of your targets may not get filled. Same thing goes for stops. They're not guaranteed, even though targets are in a better situation because they are limit orders, so they have to give you the limit price or better, but it still doesn't guarantee a fill. Whereas the stop market and market orders, they are guaranteed a fill, but they don't guarantee you the price. So both of those obviously introduce risk, especially when the domes are as thin as they are today. So once again, another week where we need to have our head on a swivel to make sure you don't get caught out, slowing down, breathing, and not following into enormous newsy candles. That is definitely the way to approach yet another week. I mean, you can't say it's boring, at least, right? Definitely not boring. Right, I'm just gonna put some levels back here, and this is a 4-hour chart now on copper. Let's have a look at how that looks, because sometimes a 4-hour time frame can provide some levels that may not be immediately obvious. Alright, so I put the visible range volume profile here. The point of control on a 4-hour chart is sitting at 83.40. That is an area of highest volume, also where we have this nearby supply, so that might get touched. COMEX value from Friday is very small on copper, but I wouldn't be opposed to retesting the area of COMEX value low and ADR high, maybe for some shorts intraday. Won't hold them until the cows come home, but whenever you have a small value area, that is rarely the cause to use a value acceptance as a setup. What is a value acceptance? It's when the market opens below value, then goes all the way up to the value, and then closes 1 30-minute time frame back inside of it. If the value area is large enough, you may have a setup that counts on a target being the opposite side of value. But today, because of this tiny amount of that area, you can maybe use the value acceptance as a directional move to maybe trade a larger level, which is taken from the options chain at 590. but the value is not good for targets. If it rejects value again, this would be maybe my COMEX trade where we retest ADR high and then maybe fail the auction if that's where we are. Asia has this needs to be all the way here. So Asia opened the Globex session at 583 roughly, and then promptly proceeded to just fall away from that. We are still currently inside the Asia range, and that is what's setting the range for the day. Until that breaks, Asia high, Asia low remain areas of interest for any kind of liquidity sweeps and prompt reversals. So that's something to consider as well. So if we remain Asia range bound, then my idea of ADR high shorts hypothesis is definitely good enough to run a reversal from the outer edge of value. So that would be value low ideally. ADR low is sitting at 565.32, so this was from last week. I'm just going to change that. 65.25, that's good enough. And that means if we do tag ADR and value low and it starts to reverse, I may actually want to increase my target to the downside, but it all depends how the price acts around VWAP. We're currently above it. VWAP can be reactive in copper, so that is definitely something to consider as a potential pain area, because if they touch VWAP and then they kind of swipe through it, that will mean we have a reversal at VWAP, and in that case it's a much smaller trade in between VWAP and this value low. So maybe that can be one of the hypos. Let's write down some hypos so that I know what I'm looking at. Now, how this short transpires later on in the day, it will entirely be dependent on what the initial balance does, where it is at the time. However, as a level, I do want to be a seller there until something changes. I might become a buyer if we go above the Asia high. However, if we test the VWAP and start to reverse, that's kind of an alternative smaller trade. For that to happen, I do not really want to see a reversal at ADR high for COMEX first, because that would be, again, a smaller trade. So it's going to have to be a case of URA loops, ODA loops, and watching what happens. But if we just kind of drift in this area where we are now, and then we carry on lower, and then the initial balance is actually created for COMEX somewhere in and around VWAP, then this could open up a possibility for something I call strength inside the initial value, strength inside the initial balance, not value. And then I would maybe look for a failed auction long, but again, I don't have that at the moment, so it's completely pointless for me to create, I want to see a failed auction long at VWAP, but what if initial balance is nowhere near it? So I'm going to have to look at it, but just kind of as a loose guide. So VWAP longs, question mark. Now if we go all the way down to ADR low and we wick below Asia low, that is definitely an area that I want to be running another long. So I'm going to say Asia low sweep, longs, but in that case I'm probably not going to run it all the way to the other side of the Asia range. Instead, VWAP is going to be my Globex VWAP as a target, yeah, that would probably be another smaller trade. So no real opportunities for any big swing trades today on copper. Do I have a fourth one? So let's say that we end up in a range day, right? So it neither goes past the ADR high, maybe creates a big initial balance, and then fails the auction on one side, extends the auction to the other side of the initial balance. That opens up a possibility for a neutral day, and then I will use time of day either London close or COMEX settlement for fading whatever side we're at. So those are my 4 setups for today based on these levels on copper. And let's see if we can create something for crude oil as well. But crude oil, with the ranges that they have, it's going to be super hard to limit risk. So even if I have a good level, good everything, it's going to require very wide stops. Just for reference, at the moment from Globex Open, we have traversed 2,323 ticks. I will say that this is probably the biggest day that I've ever seen on crude oil. One of the biggest ones was during COVID, which was a 2,000 tick move to the downside. It's a tricky one on crude oil, really is. Like we have some levels, so we have 2 mega call walls, one at 100 evens and another one at 100.5. That has so far been the stopping point. Crude oil opened with a bit of a gap and then just shot up over everything, really. I can't quite remember what the absolute high, all-time high on crude oil was, but I do believe it was around 120 something. So whether it was 124, unfortunately on this data we cannot go that far back. So the only thing that I have is here. But I know that in 2014 we were sitting up at these levels yet again. And I might have to go and look at the expired contracts or like a continuous contract that has all of this data before COVID arrived. Just to see where that all-time high is. Maybe we can use Google to help us out with that. Let's see. Crude oil futures all-time high price. So that's not really helping because they have some random CFD reference. I don't want CFD, I want futures. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more work before we start grappling with crude oil, just to see where the futures all-time high is located. But when it comes to options levels, 100s and 100.5, they are 2 areas. If they break, then we may have a situation where we go all the way down to test settlement to the downside. Now settlement is sitting somewhere around, let's say 91.30. Again, that's not going to be to the tick because I'm just using the time of day to see when it's settled. So if 100 breaks, then we will open up the possibility for a complete gap fill. I know that there's stuff going on, but crude oil has this penchant to do weird stuff and to definitely close out the gaps against the risk of sentiment because it's crude oil. And I used to have these t-shirts as merchandise for market stalkers. Crude oil is slippery. So we still have those. And maybe we can bring that back. So I'm going to dig out my crude oil is slippery t-shirt to wear tomorrow, or maybe even today, because I will be on group coaching, because crude oil is indeed back to being very, very slippery. Okay, to the upside, we have 110 as a moderate call wall. Obviously, Asia high is sitting all the way up near 120, just underneath it. Both of those remain areas of interest to the upside. How do you play this? Well, I don't know. I want to see what NYMEX does because right now everything is so crazy. Maybe I pop in 1 micro, but that 1 micro is going to have like a 300 tick stop. So it's going to be a $300 risk on just 1 micro because you can't really trade with too much else if we are moving 2,300 ticks on the day. And there is a chance that NYMEX settles the price action a bit. In that case, it might be better to look at 5-minute ATR and then use Coach Paul's way of figuring out stops, which would mean look at the 5-minute ATR, multiply by 2, and then that becomes your primary risk. So it is a tricky one. Crude oil is definitely super volatile. All right, let's have a look at who's in chat. We have, oops, okay. Can only see a partial chat here. Okay, what is the crime is here. L2K sticks. It's funny. Cedric. IDI. Hopefully I'm not butchering your username too much. Stay Puffed. Mariano. Crow Dog. Square 247. The Righteous One. Savage Sound, Crypto Fish, Not Connor, Kenny Harris, Dave is here, Nanka, Suavify, okay. Right, Suavify is saying 148 was in 2008. Yeah, so 148 all-time high. Thank you so much for that. Looks like new stars coming into gold. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Flash Golden. And then somebody's asking me what about NQ? I really am not an equities trader, mate, so you can have a look at DAX, but NQ we can look at ES, right? But I'm not going to be grappling with the psychotic product that is NQ, because if you look at crude oil, let me just remove this. If you look at crude oil, right? This is a 30-minute time frame. It's still not jumping up, down, short, long, as in like compared to the open, right? It's not psychotic intra-candle, okay? NQ, whenever you look at it, especially during the regular trading hours, it's got this like nervousness about it where it can't decide whether it wants to be red or green inside a candle. London session is a little less volatile, but the thing that annoys me about it is when I'm looking at the price action, it's almost like it's completely undecided where it's going to go until it just either rises a million ticks or just drops without you having, or without me having enough time to react to it. So, I dislike Nasdaq price action now for like the last 3 years, ever since COVID happened. And again, look at it. So it's like, it looks like it's a doji. We have 6 minutes until the close, whereas crude oil looks firmly up. So yes, it's volatile, but it doesn't have this indecision about it. I don't know how to explain it. And that's the thing that annoys me. So I really dislike Nasdaq price action because of it. Now ES is doing the exact opposite to crude oil, and that's normal during risk-off events. So risk-off means equities do something, and then crude oil typically does the complete opposite to it. It is not a relationship that exists every single day. It is only there when you have something relating to wars, something relating to risk on, risk off. And today, this all looks like risk off still, which means equities very likely down, crude oil up. That's what risk off means. I didn't do the options levels the way I do them, like with my big anchors, but we can have a look at Mon-Thurs Q levels. So we have some more important gamma wall sitting up close to 68.50. Currently this is a negative gamma regime as well. We've had a pretty strong put support from the 0 DTEs at 6600. This is end of day options, so things may have changed because they do tend to change a little bit. But so far it looks at 6600 is your reference point for the downside, and then to the upside, the very first area where maybe some more shorts appear. But again, I'm not an equities trader, and you always have bargain hunters. But the gap is all the way up at VWAP at 67.63 roughly. Can they close the gap to the downside? Yes. Will it happen today? I have no idea. It might. If the focus from, the bad stuff kicking up in the Middle East fades a little bit, or they manage to get Iranians to sit down for a potential of a ceasefire, maybe that's something to have a look at. But again, the way all doom and gloom is right now, Iranians are thinking that USA is going after their oil, so it's a resource war apparently, the way they're seeing it. That's not a good thing, and that's going to bring, more risk-off sentiment. So again, crude oil up, equities down. So I don't know whether 6,600 is going to be good enough. Right now in the first try, ES has dipped into this area of low volume where the gap lies. So let's make that bigger. So here is the little cave. This is the cave of low volume. Very frequently, these single prints or low volume nodes, however you want to call them, they will cause quick reversals on the first try, but then if they get tagged the second time, they tend to fill those. We'll see what happens. That's the only thing that I can see here. So little caves get a test, and then they get a prompt reversal because they are areas of low volumes. And how much they're going to fall, that's a matter of context. But as soon as they get retested again, they start rising. One thing I'm finding interesting here is that this weekly range low, I probably put it like back in, I don't know, November, December last year. November, yeah. So I plopped in weekly range low as a potential area of interest. They touched that and immediately shied away from it. But so I am going to say that ES is still in a range in a massive time frame. With everything that's going on, you still have some people going, yeah, let's buy some equities. So that's that's hilarious to me. And that's another thing about equities. Like, no matter what's happening, you're always going to have these people who are like, yeah, let's buy some more stocks. This is very good. Anyways, let's go back to our metals and energies markets. Is there any fix during Asian and Shanghai session for gold, metals, and crude oil? Nothing for crude oil, no. So crude oil, Savage Sand is not, doesn't even have a fix. Its fix is the NYMEX settlement. So towards the end of the day, or towards the end of the NYMEX session, they will announce the settlement. And again, this is something that is announced on Financial Juice and, a whole bunch of Squawk radios and Squawk services. They will say NYMEX settles at blah blah blah, and then that's your settlement price. Now for us, JD is the one who's inputting those levels, so until JD wakes up, I don't think those will be up, but I have one of my indicators that we have, which is on Blocktick VWAP, including the settlement by time. So I just take the settlement close as the time, and it tends to be like within a few ticks for that purpose. Oh, someone's asking about payouts. It's been over 10 days. I would suggest that you shoot off an email to someone, because whenever there's a delay in payouts, there's usually something that is a discrepancy in your data. So if you're, for example, using one email for your login to Topstep services, but your email for payouts, for example, I use Wise, is different, that takes a little bit of time. And if it's your first payout on the new dashboard, that can also be an issue. Sometimes the risk team wants to make sure that the email is correct. and then they will pay you out. But you do need to get in touch with them. So I can't help you because I'm neither support nor do I work for a risk team. I am just another trader at Topstep that's a little bit more visible because I do run my own segment here. But no, I do not have admin control. I cannot see anything. When we're running the VIPs, we can see our VIP activity through like a data aggregation platform, but that is all we can see. I can't just, log into Topstep admin and just randomly look at people's things. So I would love to help you, man, but it's way outside of my remit, right? State Pop says we're not authorized to discuss fail upside auctions without Hogue. I'm actually authorized. That I am authorized. Ask Hogue. I have been trading failed auctions and sustained auctions since 2013, and I am, if I can say that I'm an expert in something, it will be the auction process. I'm definitely somebody who knows a ton about it. I've seen it play out thousands of times in real time. And like I said, if you don't believe me, just next time Hogue is here, he might be here for the opening call as usual, ask him. Ask whether you can discuss failed auctions with D without Hogue being present. Yeah. And the seventh time, is there a fix for the Shanghai exchange? Maybe. Again, I trade Shanghai for its like times of day, but usually for precious metals it will be the LBMA that does it, but I do think that they have their own fix. What's it called? Let's see. Yeah, so they have something called the benchmark price, and it's a twice a day thing. So yeah, they do have their own fixing. So SGE benchmark price is what it's called. And it's similar to gold times for London. So if we look at the Beijing time, the first fix on gold happens at 10:15 Beijing time, and then again for 2:15. So yeah, so they do have it twice per session. Yeah. How often COMEX changes margin for requirements for CL? So Severstan, COMEX does not change any margins for CL because COMEX deals with the metals. They change them whenever it is required. So whenever markets go crazy, they will adjust their margins, and actually it is the CME, I think, who does the margins first for everybody, right? So COMEX, NYMEX, they're all now under the same umbrella of CME Group. I don't know how many people know that. Back in the day, they were all like separate exchanges, but now it's all just under CME Group. So CME will be the one in charge for exchange margins. But of course, then you have brokerages that will determine their own margins, and they are perfectly allowed to do so. So how often really depends on market conditions. And they are also allowed to change margins on the fly, which means intraday they will just adjust their margins. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is completely within the regulatory and compliant processes for them to do so. So therefore, it is one of those things that we have to just contend with, make sure, like they usually send you an email, right? So whenever AMP wants to change margins, they will shoot off an email. And they will say, we're changing the margins to this much percentage. And you just have to make sure you have enough money to absorb the margin, which is not an easy thing to do, right? Especially if they raise margins to 100%. So yeah. Dave says, oh gosh, sorry I'm late. Don't worry about it. It's just we're starting an hour earlier because of the daylight savings change. And I think Thailand and a lot of the Asian countries, I'm not even sure that they observe the whole nonsense with clock changes. So that will mean that Tokyo will now be starting an hour later. Is that right? Am I doing that right? So if USA has gone back, then if you're in the USA, Tokyo will now be starting an hour later, right? And then for me, it's still the same time because we are still on the old sort of winter time. But come end of March, that will change for me as well. So for those of you who have our indicators, you will need to make some adjustments today. So for COMEX, instead of the open being 13:30 p.m., it has to be 12:30. And then the close of the entire electronic exchange is basically 8 p.m. rather than 9 p.m. close. So you make sure to adjust that. And one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of trading the day after the clocks change in the US, and to be honest, even over here, is because you now have the Friday that is still running on the old time. So if you change the indicator, it's going to change the Friday as well. So it's like, yeah. So what I do, I typically like to sit out most of Monday and just trade accounts like practice account or a combine or something that is not a real sort of risk on the line. And then after you go through that first Monday, then on Tuesday you can use the new times, right? So that's what we're doing with Blotic Discord levels as well. So every level that was printed will be from Friday, but I did change it to print the message an hour earlier. However, the levels are still the same. So tomorrow that's going to change. So I've got a little bit of admin to do there. America went ahead an hour, not back. All right. Yeah, I always get confused where they're going. So just look at where they are. Yeah, so they went an hour, which means that we over here lose an hour. So things are going to be starting for me 1 hour earlier because you guys went forward. Yeah. And that also means that Tokyo for you guys is now going to be an hour later than it normally is because you guys lost an hour effectively. Yeah. Brian says typically London session makes a big move around 4 a.m. EST. I noticed today it made it at 5, which is the same. Yeah, that is exactly it, Brian. It is the function of you guys losing an hour. So yeah, it's a weird time. It is it's a weird time of the year. Nobody knows what's happening. I agree, DJ Runs. DST is stupid. Yes, I hate daylight savings as well. Is the silver fixed now? No, so London is still on the old time. We don't change until 28th of March. So 12 p.m. is going to be in an hour. just a little less, like 48 minutes or something. So yeah. Coach Croft says I just got to Thailand and I have no clue. Body's adjusting to 12-hour time difference. Yeah, so Thailand doesn't have daylight savings, and Bruno is also in Thailand. So whenever we change times, Thailand has to shift things around. Because obviously most of the exchanges that we trade during the New York session, they are US hours. So we have to make sure. And here's another thing. Arizona and Hawaii, they don't observe the daylight savings either. Just to make it like even more weird. So yeah, I absolutely hate the daylight savings. I think they should abolish it. There's many countries in the world that have abolished it, and Turkey is one of them. They don't really observe it anymore. And I do wish that the rest of the world just basically does away with it. I absolutely hate looking at the data that is now all messed up because somebody decided that, oh yeah, we need to sort out the clocks. It's like, why? Like, I get it before we had electricity. I get it. Then, there was farmers and they wanted to have more light in the morning and in the evening or whatever it is. So more light in the morning during the summer, right? Or during winter. And then they wanted to have more light in the summer towards the end of the day. But it's like, there's a thing called floodlights, so, there's an idea. And yes, I know there's a thing about schools and, but that doesn't really track for me because in the wintertime, kids are walking from school at 4:30 p.m. when it's already pitch black. So how is that protecting anyone? I don't know. I'm against daylight savings, in case you haven't noticed. I know, what is the crime? But again, farmers, they have lights. Like the guy that owns the farmland, 2,000 acres, he doesn't do, like, you know, no light and then doing the farming like an ungodly hour without any lights, right? And he also does it with like tractors and stuff that also have lights. So why do the rest of us, like, I get it before we had electricity, right? 1800s, 1700s, I get it, right? There was nothing. You couldn't just have a million candles out there. But now, in this day and age, I think it's a little bit silly to like remain doing weird things on just because the farmers want a little bit more light. It's like, well, so yeah, but I want normality, and I don't like the clock change. Yeah, Arizona and Hawaii stays the same time. Exactly. So why can't the rest of us? Like, what's... Yeah. The cows don't change time. Exactly. The cows don't change time. The cows are like, we don't care. My dogs don't change time. My dogs still want to get fed at the same time. And if I'm an hour late, once the time does change, they'll be like, our bellies are saying that it's time to eat. Why aren't you feeding us? It's like, well, because of daylight savings, River Bear. And he's like, I don't get, what is daylight savings? Like, what? So yeah, animals have it right. Okay, so things have grinded to a halt in the metals at the moment, which is normal. So COMEX will be opening at my time, about an hour and 15 minutes roughly. Yeah. So we've got a little bit of time to wait. But again, everything's messed up because now we're going to have silver, silver fix at midday, and then immediately half an hour after COMEX opened. So it's like how to make everything super volatile even more than it is. Didn't do the levels for silver. I think it's still a little too crazy, so it's not really on my list yet. So yeah, today I'm going to be probably more in observation mode than anything. If I do trade something, it will be pretty late. It will be London close, maybe. And it's going to be light on crude oil. However, since copper is not really that volatile, like copper is actually pretty normal today. The drop from the Globex Open was only 300 ticks, which is well within norms and stuff. A little bit bigger for copper, but still very, very tradable. So on copper, I'm going to remain on the whole 4, 5, 6 scaling. I would like to see them release the bloody thing for, because you know it's messing up my whole risk thing. I'm trying to practice adding in, and that calls for like 3 or 4 add-ons, but I've only been able to practice 2 add-ons because of that. And that means the projected sort of returns that I was doing, they're now not valid because of the limitations. And I don't think that copper should be restricted at all, because it is still moving within only like 300 ticks per day. Is that a cause for restrictions? Are we scared now of the movement of 300 ticks? So I don't know whether this is the CME regulations that whether they still have restrictions, because you know we can only go by whatever CME is doing. And I'm gonna have a look at that in between waiting for the better time of the day, which is the London close. But yeah, so that's gonna be that is still tricky for me, you know, because I projected that on the days when 2R gets hit, that's 1500, but I'm only managing 700 to 800, which because of the restrictions. It's like, oh great, so I should have gone into a 50k, not 150k. So yeah, it's just a little bit annoying to me. And crude oil, again, I need to redo the whole risk model now, because I had the risk model of 3, 4, and 5 scale-ins, but that is too big for this range, so we're gonna have to rethink that. What is the crime? To confuse us all of them. UTC went back 1 hour because a minus and a plus is a minus, which is a plus because it is a negative number. Thank you for that lovely explanation. It's all clear to me now. Everybody's on the same page. Yeah, it's not confusing at all. Brad Sims has joined us. Brad is one of my VIPs, former VIPs. There was a study in Indiana in the US that showed DST actually increased energy costs for citizens. I saw that same study, yeah. We used to have certain counties that didn't change 10 minutes away. It would be an hour different, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if the costs are more for running DST, why are we still doing it? So we don't need additional costs. Faisal says, we don't have light in the UK. Anyway, thanks to our beautiful weather, this is daylight or not, we don't see the difference. We're vampires. Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. So we, in the UK, it's always overcast. Apparently it's supposed to be sunny today. Remains to be seen. We've had like rain, and nothing but the rain from January. And somebody would say, oh, but it always rains in London. No, it does not, okay? That's not true. It rains a lot, but London and Seattle, for example, they have the same weather. So it rains as much as it rains in Seattle. It's literally the same. So obviously you can have, beautiful summers for us are amazing. And if England had that, it would be like the most beautiful country in the world. And having 7 straight weeks of just rain and nothing else, that's an outlier, right? So I was expecting cold days. I don't mind cold, but it wasn't even that cold. It was just like wet, miserable, wet. It's like, Christ, I just want to have one day where I don't have to give all 8 dogs a bath after a walk. That's getting very old. Getting very, very old, right? For me. Now I'm looking at buying them like full-on protective raincoats, but even that, they're still gonna have their tails out, so their tails are still gonna go wet. Yeah, it's just annoying. It's just we need some sunshine. Last year when I moved into this place in May, we had straight up like from May all the way till like late October. I don't know whether we had like a bit of rain for like a couple of days. It was so sunny, it was so beautiful. I felt like I was living somewhere else. So I started looking up whether I'm maybe in some kind of a valley where we have less rain. And we are in a valley, but January, February, and now also March have more than made up for lack of rainfall. So I've only got out with the power washer, jet wash thingy on Saturday to wash the patio here. Because it gets like algae and stuff, it goes like all green, and the only thing that deals with it is the power wash. And I felt good enough to get out there and deal with just one patio. I still have the one further into the garden where the smokeless fire pit is. So might do that in between now when I end the stream, and then when we get to the London close. So I'm gonna have some time. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting day today for sure. I do think I'm on group coaching this week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you will see me more later today. Cedric says, do you travel with dogs by plane for vacations or sunny countries? I used to, but unfortunately since Brexit, they have this new law where you cannot have more than, I think, 6 dogs with you, or 5 dogs with you, unless you're exporting them for like a commercial something or a competition. I don't have dogs for competing or anything. They're just family dogs that live a beautiful life, and they are trained, but the training is all just for fun. It's not for them to look poncy and stand there with like the tails, and I don't do that. So I used to go when we only had 2 dogs, and we used to do either south of France or Spain somewhere. But we're not able to do that now because of the Brexit nonsense. The only way for me to do that would be to probably spend like 80 grand on a private jet, and then it wouldn't be Spain, because that would be also against the rules, since you can only have, I think, 6 dogs. They deemed that one household can only have 6 dogs. So I'm guessing that the Spain is going to be off the table for me. Maybe Portugal. I don't know. I need to like see whether there are any other options. I do still have Belgrade in Serbia. That's where I'm originally from. So that could be an option, but we would still need to get over the whole 8 dogs in a car problem. Maybe go in 2 cars. I don't know, man. It's a logistical nightmare since Brexit came. So that's been something that severely limits me for any kind of vacations. Not that I can do like holidays and stuff. Not that I can do that very often, because I'm so tired all the time. So that is that kind of defeats the point. If I'm going to have a crash because I have to be on a plane for like 6 hours and then get there and spend the next 2 weeks in a crash, it's like I might as well just stay in the house, right? So there are certain logistic issues with my health conditions. And to be honest, our home is like a holiday home anyway now. So we have an enormous living room, the kitchen that's a proper kind of chef's kitchen. So you have the pantry, you have a prep area, you have the cooking area, and then you have a massive bar, like a serving area, which is super wide and has these like speckles of like sparkly things in it, and it's just beautiful. So I don't feel like I need to go somewhere to escape anything. I live in the countryside. There's cows or sheep out the back, depending on the time of the year. The other day we had a pheasant landing in the garden. And now my Bernard, he has a pheasant stuffed toy. And he loves it. He carries it everywhere. And this thing that landed looked exactly like his toy. So he was out there doing his things and, just kind of sniffing out. And then pheasant lands behind him. And he turns around and he went, "Oh, woof." He was like, "Hey, you want to play?" There was no malice in his bone. It was like, it's so funny. He just wanted to play with it. He was like, "Oh my God, hi, who are you?" So I thought that was very cute, considering that they are half Cavaliers. So, don't they have like this inherent instinct to chase? And some of them do, absolutely, like 7. If a pheasant landed anywhere near her, she would go absolutely insane. But not Bernie. Bernie was like, hey friend, hi, can you play? So, it's a beautiful, peaceful area, and I don't have any, like there's one neighbor that's like 30 meters away, and they sold us this place, so they're lovely. And then past us too, the next houses are like half a mile to a mile down the road. So there's like literally nothing in here, which is great, right? So that means that even if I want to relax, I can just not look at the charts if I'm off, off on a staycation kind of thing. And I have 2 big loungers outside. I'm probably going to repurchase the hammock, and I'm going to put it underneath one of the trees, because I've got 4 oak trees in the back of my own garden. And one of them is just screaming for like a hammock type thing. But I used to have this this standalone hammock, and it was on a metal frame. And it was really comfortable. So when the puppies were small in the old house, we used to like all jump in there and just kind of sunbathe and whatever. But I think one of the big oak tree that you can see like right out from the living room is just screaming for that hammock. So that's something that I'm going to buy later on in the year. Because I threw out the old one. Even though it wasn't that old, it was just like too bulky. And to actually get it transported, it was so heavy. So they were like, oh, can you like undo this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So we just chucked that out and just gonna buy a new one. So yeah. Expectation crude close today. So Neil, I never ever do that. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a psychic, and that kind of thinking is actually one of the main causes of people losing, right? If you say, I expect crude oil to close at above 110 today, and then it smashes all the way through the 100, closes the gap, then reverses and still closes higher than 100, but doesn't quite get to 110, what have you got as a trader? A losing trade because you were expecting it to go up. I never do that, right? So here's how I'm looking at things. What do I have right now, right here? What are the probabilities for this time of the day? And quite honestly, they're 50-50 across the board. The only time that's not the case is when crude oil runs away to the upside. There's no risk-off events. So there's nothing really technically macro picture-wise pushing it to go that high. And then I fade the move in between now sort of pre-market and NYMEX open. We don't have that. So therefore, there is no setup for me on crude oil. The second probability, let's say copper. What does copper do usually? Well, it frequently does tag one of the extremes of the range. ADR high being one of them. ADR low being way down. So what do I have right now? I have an HVL, gamma flip level, and VWAP just underneath it. That is middle of the range. And for this time of day, again, 50-50, whichever way it's going to go. Okay? So I need it to get back up to my area of interest. If we are there, I have a hypo for that. If we're not there, and if we're sitting still at VWAP, I have a hypo for that. If we go all the way down here, I also have a hypo for that. So I know whether I'm going to be a buyer or a seller at each of these price points. Does that mean if we get to ADR high and it smashes through it, am I going to chase that now? And then it starts to chop. So I'm long, I'm short, I'm long, I'm short, I'm long, I'm short. And that is the biggest way, fastest way to dig a hole. So you don't want to be doing that, okay? So the way I look at things, what are my orientation points? Are we there? And if not, it means to wait. As simple as that. Where either of these products are going to end today at NYMEX, I absolutely have zero clue. But I can tell you that at this point, crude oil has 100 and 100.5 that was rejected for now. So I never speculate where we're going to be at the end of the day, especially not with like 9-10 hours to go, because that is a pointless waste of energy. Okay, that is one thing that I can tell you. Trade what's in front of you now. Don't trade, oh, where is it going to be 9 hours from now? Nobody knows that, okay? And literally, like Hogue says, ACH, anything can happen. That rings true when you look at it from this perspective. Yes, we have orientation points. Yes, we have an idea of what we want to do if and when the price gets there. But we do not want to speculate where the prices are going to end up. Because we could have, somebody from Iran going, actually, we are thinking now, we do want a ceasefire agreement. Let's sit down and chat. That is going to completely change the picture. This is why headline risk is so annoying, because you're literally dependent on the news. Open up financial juice, figure out what's happening, keep your one eye on it, but do not trade those events. If you happen to be in a trade and it goes your way, kiss the ground you walk on and close the trade. If it goes against you, just hope that the stop loss is going to be respected, which it probably won't on the big contract, because if you look at crude oil, it's absolutely bloody thin and there's nothing there. So I would very much doubt that any stops and any targets that you have will A, be filled exactly where they need to be, and B, where the stops are not going to be slipped by a million ticks if they say something and it goes crazy. So this is why we say caution. This is another potentially risk-off week with headline risk flying all over the place. Speculating where anything will be 8-9 hours from now is a futile exercise, okay? Not Connor says, hi Dee, do you like the CL option chain for crude oil? Do I like it? I don't have to like it. I am deriving data from it. I'm not going to be marrying it. But how do we use it is a different ways, a different perspective. It's all gone to the call buying side, for sure. But I'm still seeing some puts that are hedged way out of money. So they're still expecting, if this all kind of comes crashing back down in case of an agreement of some sort, they still have protective puts, okay? But for now, everything is seeing this as a very big thing. Do I have levels where I want to run options? No. If we maybe resolve things at some point this year, so my options trades are not done during headline risk, that is not what I do. However, let's say that over the next few months, it proves that 100, 100 might be the area where they cannot get over because there might be some kind of ceasefire. I'm certainly hoping for it. At the moment, it's all very new. It's all kicking off. Rimmer Bear has joined us. I don't know whether you can see him. Yeah, I just had a co-host that wasn't invited. I just started to pop in. I just wanted to know what the people are doing. That was Rimmer, by the way. But yeah, so options, if we stay below 100 over the next couple of months, maybe I do a short call. Maybe I do a long put. I don't know. At the moment, I don't know. But, for now, I don't have anything in options. It's too dangerous, way too newsy for me. So I need all of that to settle before I decide what I'm going to do and if I'm going to do anything. So hopefully that helps. Do I use the same MHG setup every day? I actually have 5 core setups and probably about 15 variations on them from like different levels. And yes, I use the same playbooks, but they will be failed auctions, neutral day responsive fades, there will be auction fades, there will be SEEB and WEEB. So those are my 5 core setups. And then, the obvious one is a sustained auction. However, I dislike doing breakouts. So I will always look for fall into an initial balance before a continuation. Ergo SEEB and WEEB rather than sustained auctions that I trade from like breakouts. Now, if you were on my Market Stalker stream on Thursday, we spent quite a long time not doing anything, and then it was more than obvious that they kept going into a gamma squeeze. So I did manage to skim a few ticks to the upside because of the gamma squeeze. So that's something that I do during the extraordinary times. But unless you've seen gamma squeezes before, I would say that they are very difficult for more beginner traders, beginner tape readers to catch properly. And it's also see money, take money kind of environment. Even though it goes for 1 million ticks, that is not a proper swing because A, your trade location sucks because there's nothing else there because it's a gamma squeeze, so they just keep running it higher. And B, they can just hedge it at any one point at any round number in that environment. So it becomes very dangerous for you to like hold trades. And 30-minute time frame closes are the times to look out for those hedging behaviors. So anytime a 30-minute time frame closes, especially if it's at the top of the hour, that is an extra dangerous time to keep holding on to your trades that are a result of a gamma squeeze. Sure, they can smash it higher, of course, but what they usually do is they shake out everybody to the opposite side before they continue. So knowing that the 30-minute time frames have this penchant of heavy moves of taking the price elsewhere, if you make your decisions of whether to stay in on book profits just before then, to me that's something that served me very well. But if I'm in on a swing and there's no risk off, I will look for the closes of the 30-minute time frame to make another push in the same direction if we're like in some kind of a mad swing trade. If that doesn't happen, that is also the cause. So what doesn't happen is as equally as important as what does happen. And if they just have no engagement, I will then decide to bail out of the swing early. But for gamma squeezes, those are typically scalps for about 30 to 50 ticks for me. Only when the market conditions are orderly, calm, and collected. That is when I would consider, okay, we're coming away from a demand area on the daily chart. We've extended the auction. Let me try and swipe this from some kind of a bit of a pullback, and then see if I can stay in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 ticks. If there's a space for that. But it's always, the entry is always 5 core playbooks for me. And they're specific playbooks to me, right? They are not just Dalton copy kind of things. Some of them have been taken as ideas from Dalton, but then I evolved them to suit what I was needing on commodities, because obviously he's mainly an ES trader. And some of those did not work for me particularly. However, my playbooks are very well defined because I need that. And I cannot have like, so volume is kind of waning, let's try and do this. Not good enough for me. I need to know what I'm doing, how the price action should roughly look like, whether the volume is exactly 1.7 over the amount that I'm looking at. When I'm looking at a sweep, that's always going to be the volume that is over 1.5 times the previous bars, but never over 3 times. Why? Because I know that in my mechanical algorithms, if it's over 3 times, that's usually a real breakout. But if it's 1.7 or in between that kind of sweet spot, that has to be a sweep. If it's lower than that, then it's neither. Maybe they're just like, establishing a range, or there's not enough interest at that level, and then I will look for the next level and things like that, right? So I'm a mechanical trader elsewhere. We have algorithms that run on behalf of me, so all I'm doing is just switching things on and off. I'm not actually clicking buttons to get in or out, but I'm the one who created strategies, therefore I know what I want to see and what sort of conditions we coded when we were creating those algorithms. So hopefully all of that you can derive something that is helpful for you. How was my weekend? Amar is asking. It was good, it was quiet. I did some jet washing of the garden, and then Sunday we walked the dogs, and then I did absolutely nothing. I sat on the sofa and played video games and ate a lot of snacks. Very exciting, very exciting. Would I mind confirming what I consider a failed auction, please? I don't know whether we have all the time in the world, but that is a loaded question. But generally, it's to do with the first hour of trading range. So wherever the high and low is, those are your reference points. If the price attempts to then go outside of that, and for me, in the way I do that playbook, I need one 30-minute time frame to confirm the failure of the auction. However, sometimes I will front run those. Of course I will, because I do look at order flow and I look at bookmap. And if I see that the failed auction is coming from a relevant level, like let's say the Asia range, I will try and front run that, purely because I've seen that happen like a million times, and most of the time it works. So I'm just playing the probabilities, looking at bookmap, and if I see that the delta is gone into a sweep, so they dropped it, let's say it's Asia low, but then the price wicked above it, and then delta is just not moving off that low point, suddenly you start getting the other side occurring and delta is immediately reactive to that. I will definitely front run it. And then I will use the 30-minute time frame close. So I will wait for the full 30-minute time frame to be done and dusted. And then I will go, okay, yes, this is now a failed auction. Now I want to see a push. And I do want to see more volume in the opposite direction with increasing delta to that same side in order for me to stay in on a full failed auction. So there is a little bit more to them rather than just, oh, it's failing the auction. So there's a volume component. There is, how reactive the participants are. Do we even have a level that is not based just on initial balance? So ideally, I want my failed auctions to come from either the outer edges of value or from some kind of a, mega call wall in the options, or alternatively Asia high, Asia low, being the most ideal areas for those kinds of setups. But failed auctions are not be all and end all. You can have neutral day fade. You can have a sustained auction. You can have a sustained auction that goes back into initial balance and then continues. So it looks like a failed auction for a time, but it's just not really doing anything. And that's when you have to wonder, is this a failed auction? So I'm actually thinking of creating a YouTube video on my own channel, Market Stalkers one, about just pure failed auctions, but then also inside that video to say when the failed auctions failed, because I think that's a much more difficult situation where, you see that it is there, but at the same time, it's not really moving through like more than about 30% of the initial balance. So then you have to zoom out, look at the context, and if the volume and delta are just not following that failed auction move, you have to just say, this is a partial failed auction. I don't want to be in on that. So it is a loaded question. There's a lot of stuff to look at. I think a lot of people have completely simplified the idea of failed auction. It's like, well, it's failing the auction. Not the full picture. There's more, a lot more to them. Joe, you asked me whether I can review your account last time. We were waiting for the submission, and it never arrived. So we can try that for the end. We have about 18 minutes here together before I need to bounce and make the move for the daytime show. But Bruno is going to give you a link where to post it, because you guys cannot post links for obvious reasons unless you're moderators. However, Bruno can give you a link in Discord where you can submit your stats and we can have a look at them. So be quick if you want that today. But I know you were asking for that last Thursday as well. So yes, we can do that, but be quick. How much of a crude move did you get? Nothing. It's Monday, mate. We need to be very careful here. So I might catch something, and we'll see whether we can do something with it. If the risk is too much, and if I need to use like 500-600 ticks in order to do anything, I won't touch crude oil today. I don't like it when we go into 2,000 tick moves on the day, okay? I prefer 300 to 700 as a sweet spot. Anything outside of that I see as a huge risk. And on these accounts, you can't even go past 1 micro, right? So, if you have to use a 600 tick stop on 1 micro crude, that's $600 risk. Just about doable on 150K, so maybe I'll do that. But for now, I'm kind of thinking 300, maybe scaling once, but not now. So for the risk off, I'm going to stick to the highest probability times of day, which unfortunately is not this time, because I only trade crude when it goes all the way up into a single-sided sustained auction during London, and then I fade that. It went into a really weird auction to the downside, reclaimed 100 level, which is an options level, looked like it wants to fail the auction, but never made it to the opposite side, and considering how volatile it is, it shouldn't have stopped. So this is another case where the failed auction could not be completed by rotating all the way to the opposite side of the initial balance. So now I'm actually thinking, I don't know, we might see crude oil doing crude oil things and continuing to do this jump off a cliff. So they started halfway through the night, so it started at 2 a.m. and right now crude oil is looking more like a silver chart for me, where Asia was very, very lively, obviously because of headline risk. So right now I'm just in observation mode. I am not trading it. And I don't know whether I will trade it either. But yeah, so initial balance was here. We are inside the initial balance, but at the same time we never rotated. So is this a weeb? Weeb setup. What's a weeb setup? Weakness inside the initial balance. It's my setup. You won't hear that anywhere else. Weeb and Seeb. That doesn't market stalkers method setups. But my market stalkers know what they're all about. So maybe this is it. Maybe. But one really difficult thing is that we have not one but two mega call walls to within 50 ticks of each other. And the entire chain is very, very much call buying. All right, this is Joe. Okay, this is Joe Watson. Let's see. Great job on the win percentage. Although you're kind of walking a thin line here with 1.15. If you are aiming for 53%, as soon as you get to 1R, so if it continues to go down, Joe, you will be looking at an account that's slowly bleeding money, right? So 56% is where really you want to be when you're floating around 1-to-1. So that's the first kind of criticism that I'm going to say. Let's see the sizes. I love the fact that you are taking it slow. There is no over trading. That is absolutely amazing. So 4 trades, 6 trades, 2, 3, 16, 2. And I'm also going to guess that you're not oversizing, that you're trading M and Q. Yeah, so that's great. So that needs to continue. That is absolutely amazing. And even on the days when you went to 6 trades, this was, it worked out for you. Your losses intraday are great. So yeah, the only critique that I can say is just watch the average win and average loss, that it doesn't go to 1-to-1. That's the only thing. But otherwise, great work. This is a great start to the XFA. You're taking it slow and steady. Keep your risk relatively contained. And be very careful with positioning and just keep it up. I like the hold times. So you have 30 minutes to 1 hour, 85% of the trades that won. You held them for a very, very long time. That's amazing. You even had some swing trades there that lasted 4 hours and up. Again, amazing. So I love this. Yeah, absolutely love it. Ooh, I see you tried trading silver. Stay away from silver. If you didn't have that, you would have done so much better. Please stick to M and Q if that's what you trade. MGC if you can. Silver is not a true micro, so do not mess around with it until you get to, and I see short 5 crude oil. That's not good. So if I'm going to pick critiques, trading 5 minis on crude oil, even if you have like 20, 30, 40 grand of balance in there, you should still only be trading 1 or 2, especially in this environment. And long silver is not a true micro. Stay away from mini contracts, please, and stay away from multiples. This one worked in your favor, but then I see that you weren't able to hold on to that, because otherwise we would see a much bigger profit here. Let's have a look at the previous month. Did you trade minis in the beginning though? Because I see there's a previous month here. So what was this? Full porting something. You started with large contracts, now you're down. Okay, I see what's happening. All right, there was another page there. So I like that you've gone down to micros now. I don't like that you started this XFA with full contracts, silver, whole bunch of stuff, and then, look at this P&L. Like, is this the kind of variance you want to see? So if we're going to do criticism, a swing on the first day of an XFA of 5,000, if this had gone wrong, this XFA would be gone. And then again, look at the variance. This is not the P&L curve that you want to see at the beginning of the XFA, because I thought the one that you submitted in March, that was it, right? But this is not smooth, let's put it that way. So you want to try and get that variance as less as possible. You don't want to go plus 6,000 minus 4,000 plus 3,000 minus 4,500 plus too much variance. The risk doesn't want to see this. So that's not a good way to start things. But I see that after a couple of days of full porting, you then went down and you only had a couple of days when you sized up. But again, just be careful, please. I like what I'm seeing recently, you know. I like what I'm seeing recently. And this is more along the lines of what you should be doing. This one, you bailed yourself out, traded full NQ. Please don't do that. As I'm diving into this, I'm seeing some things that... And again, trading full crude oil, but one NQ. Where is the... That's not a real risk model. You're just kind of grasshoppering around minis versus micros versus this versus that. So yeah, bit of inconsistencies in the beginning, and recently you tried doing a couple of bigger trades that didn't work, and I'm guessing it was a bit painful. Okay, so again, you start off with M and Q, and then suddenly you're trading NQ, and then suddenly you're trading CL. There's no need. On micros, you can generate a much smoother way of doing things. And again, look, variance, variance, variance. But look at how that variance disappears. Look at how that variance disappears when you're trading micros. Why? Because emotional regulation is better. You're able to hold trades longer. See? There's none of the jumpiness. You just stay on a trade. See the difference of smooth curves, lack of grasshoppering and stuff. This speaks of the emotional regulation. All right, this one, you know, it didn't go well because you went back to full minis. And what happened? Again, a huge amount of variance, right? But you stick to micros. You stick to micros. And you're able to hold trades much longer and much more controlled. Right? 1,809 trades. Yeah, there will be times when we all lose the plot. That's not something to be ashamed of, right? It really isn't, because none of us, we're not robots. We all have good days and bad days, and it's okay. It's absolutely okay to have a day where you lose your shit a little bit, okay? But that's not, like, that's a part of the game. You know, nobody is always profitable, and it's absolutely fine to have some days where you're like, yeah, went full Muppet mode, but it kind of worked. It's just that you need to recognize that and just go, phew, okay, survived that one. Let's try and not repeat that. It's not that it won't happen. It's just that your ability to drag yourself out of those kind of days, it should already happen halfway through the day. Maybe you recognize that you've got a little bit off the wall there, and then you just go, hey, hold on a minute. Let me just ease up, and let me go back to micros, go back to my, you know, my true self, and continue to trade. And then from there on out, you start to see smoother curve. But the curve of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, you don't want to see that. You want to see like smooth curve, mostly with maybe a bit of a squiggle in the middle, and then smooth, or squiggle down and then nice dragging yourself back up. You don't want just a disaster where it's like all going wrong, and then you get one lucky trade and it's like, oh my god, I pulled the P&L up from the massive sort of canyon of a red day. Don't do that. It's much easier to maintain your emotional regulation when the position sizes match the account buffer that you have at the moment, right? This is especially important in the beginning of the XFAs, because a lot of you like to full port XFAs and then you lose them just as quick, right? So let's try not to do that. Otherwise, I like how you tightened it up towards the end. So this beginning of March, you're trading a lot better, a lot more controlled. You're able to hold trades and have very little variance. So continue that with that. All right, guys, we're going to finish it up with the metal markets here and make way for the daytime show. Thank you so much for joining me here. I will see you again for group coaching a little bit later today, I think. And again tomorrow for another episode of the Metal Markets. I'm Marcus Talker D, and I will see you very soon. Take care.